Let's talk about stories that just shouldn't be real. Tales of people pushed so far past their limits that, honestly, by all logic, they should have died. But they didn't. And these aren't just survival stories. They are some of the most powerful proof we have of what the human will is capable of when it's literally all you have left.
Seriously, have you ever asked yourself, what's my breaking point? When everything, and I mean everything, is stripped away. Food, water, shelter, maybe even hope. What are we actually capable of? The stories we're about to get into, they don't just ask that question, they shatter it.
All right, so here's the plan. We'll start with this core idea of the will to survive. Then we'll dive into 3 unbelievable case studies: a man alone against the ocean, a frontiersman crawling for revenge, and an almost unbelievable story of leadership in the Antarctic ice. And at the end, we'll pull it all together and see what we can learn from the survivor's mindset.
So let's get into it. Our journey starts with 3 pretty ordinary people who were thrown into the most extraordinary life-or-death situations you can imagine. These are stories about what happens when the only person who can save you is you.
First up, we're heading out into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean during World War II. Meet Poon Lim. He's a 24-year-old steward on a British merchant ship. And one day, out of nowhere, his ship is torpedoed by a German U-boat. He's blasted overboard into the endless, empty ocean.
And if that wasn't bad enough, get this. The German U-boat crew actually surfaced, just to mock him while he was struggling for his life in the water. Then they submerged, and he was completely alone. He would end up spending the next 133 days adrift at sea. That's more than 4 months. His journey was, a total nightmare. After a couple of hours in the water, he lucked out and found a small life raft with a few basic supplies. But as the days slowly turned into weeks, those supplies just ran out. They were gone. And with no ships anywhere on the horizon, he had to face this terrifying reality. If he was going to live, it was entirely up to him. And this is where things get absolutely wild. When the rations were gone, he took apart a flashlight and bent the spring into a fishhook. He rigged a canvas cover to catch rainwater. He even managed to catch seagulls and would dry their meat in the sun to make a kind of jerky. But his most desperate move? When the rain stopped for a long time, he managed to lure in and kill a shark just so he could drink the fluid from its liver to stay hydrated. Unbelievable. Okay, so from the vast emptiness of the ocean, our next story takes us to the completely unforgiving American wilderness. The year is 1823, and a fur trapper named Hugh Glass is scouting ahead of his group when he walks right up on a mother grizzly bear and her cubs. What happened next was a mauling that absolutely should have killed him, and he kicked off an insane journey of 200 miles back to civilization. But here's the thing you have to understand. He didn't walk those 200 miles. For a huge part of it, with a completely shattered leg, he crawled. I mean, the attack was just horrific. The bear ripped his back open, literally exposing his ribs. It broke his leg, and it sliced open his throat. When his fellow trappers found him, he was just a mangled heap, and they were 100% sure they were looking at a dead man. So, 2 of his companions, John Fitzgerald and Jim Bridger, they were paid to stay with him until he died, but after 5 days, they just gave up. They took his rifle, his knife, everything. They threw him in a shallow grave and took off. They went back and told everyone he was dead. But he wasn't. And that betrayal, that became the fuel for everything that came next.
Fueled by pure rage, Glass just refused to die. He set his own broken leg as best he could and started to crawl. For weeks, he lived off of roots and berries. He even, in this horrifying but brilliant move, let maggots clean out his infected back wounds, which is what prevented a fatal infection. He had one single, burning desire that kept him going: revenge.
So, after finally getting back to safety and recovering, Glass spent months hunting down Fitzgerald. He finally found him at an army fort, ready for his long-awaited vengeance. But there was a twist. Fitzgerald had joined the U.S. Army, and the fort's captain told Glass that Fitzgerald was now government property and he couldn't touch him. Glass got his rifle back, but he was denied the one thing that had kept him alive. For our last story, we're going to the most hostile place on the entire planet, Antarctica. And this isn't a story about one person surviving alone. It's a legendary tale of leadership. In 1914, Sir Ernest Shackleton set out to be the first person to cross the entire continent on foot. And he wasn't alone. He was in charge of the lives of 27 other men aboard his ship, which was named the Endurance.
Their goal was to make history. Instead, they were about to be forced into a desperate fight for their own existence.
Their whole ordeal just stretched on for what must have felt like an eternity. First, their ship got stuck in the sea ice. Then, for months, the ice just slowly, powerfully crushed the Endurance until it finally sank, leaving them all stranded on the ice. For almost 2 full years, these 28 men were completely lost to the world.
With his men facing certain death on a desolate spot called Elephant Island, Shackleton does something that is frankly insane. He and 5 other guys get into this tiny 22-foot lifeboat and set out to cross 800 miles of the most violent, dangerous ocean on the planet to get help. And after that impossible journey, he then had to climb over a range of unmapped, frozen mountains to reach a whaling station.
Shackleton immediately started organizing a rescue. It took 4 long months and multiple failed attempts. But on August 30th, 1916, he finally broke through the ice. They started the journey as a crew of 28, and after nearly 2 years lost in the most hostile place on Earth, 28 men were saved. Not a single man was lost.
So after hearing all that, what do we take away from these epic stories? I mean, they seem almost superhuman, right? But if you look closely, they reveal some fundamental truths about what it takes to endure the impossible.
Each story really shows us a different key to that survivor's mindset. Pun Lim gives us creative ingenuity, that ability to see a solution where anyone else would just see a piece of junk. Hugh Glass embodies this unwavering determination, how a single powerful purpose like revenge can literally keep a person from dying. And then Shackleton shows us the will to live for others, how that immense responsibility for a team can unlock a strength you never ever knew you had.
When Pun Lim was finally rescued, he found out that he held the world record for the most days survived on a life raft. And his reply is it's a chilling reminder of what survival actually costs. He just said, "I hope no one will ever have to break that record." It's a powerful thought, isn't it? That these incredible feats that we admire are born from a level of suffering we should all hope we never have to endure. Thanks for watching.